Hello, I'm Chef Holly Peterson. I have created two different truffles for you. And one is more of a Mardi Gras theme. The second truffle is actually going to be a dark chocolate ganache, so a very classic dark chocolate ganache, but we're gonna season it, and this is really more for Valentine's Day. We're just gonna use the zest of the tangerine, okay? And that's what we're gonna put in our dark chocolate ganache. And then, because it's Valentine's Day, I wanna make it a little special for you guys. So we're actually gonna fill strawberries with our ganache rather than rolling the ganache, okay, into a truffle shape. So I'm gonna show you two different ways to make truffles. One of the really important ingredients in pastry and chocolate work is you weigh all of your ingredients. You don't measure them. So I'm just using a glass today, and then I'm gonna clear my screen until I get a 0 grams. And then I'm just gonna weigh out how much cream that I'm gonna use. So I'm just gonna pour about 50 grams of cream. So now I'm gonna go to the stove. It's a heavy copper pan. I'm just gonna pour my cream right in this pan. While that is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and weigh out my chocolate. So all you really need to know when making a white chocolate truffle is really the proportion. We just want twice as much chocolate to cream. I'm just gonna go ahead and now zero out my scale once again. And since we have 50 grams of cream, I'm gonna use 100 grams of white chocolate, and this is really good white chocolate. Now that it's 100 grams, I'm just gonna pull a couple out. So even though it says 100 grams, I'm gonna do a little bit less than that, because when my cream comes to a boil, a funny thing happens. You always evaporate a little bit. You lose just a little bit. So I'm gonna back out a little bit of my chocolate so that everything works out just great. Okay, my cream has come to a boil, and now all at once, I'm just gonna pour my white chocolate directly into this little pan, and I'm gonna cover the lid. Just let it sit and melt for a moment. And while that's melting, I'm gonna take my pecans and lightly chop them. I've just warmed this lightly on the stove, and I want you to get a good look at that so you can see that my pecans have just started to turn. Now, in the recipe I've given you, I didn't put a quantity for a reason. I want you to put as many pecans as you like. So some people like a lot of pecans, and some people like very few. And it doesn't matter. That's not the important part of the recipe. That you can do to taste, okay? So this is where you make it your own. If you want it to be like a little pecan ball with a little bit of white chocolate truffle ganache, then that's what you do. And if you want it to be very delicate and you want just a little bit of the pecan, then you control that amount. And we really want this kind of roughly chopped. So don't overdo it, because we don't want a lot of pecan dust. I want pecan pieces inside this truffle, which I think is going to be delicious. Let's check in on our white chocolate ganache and see how that is doing. So it looks to me like it is melting nicely, and we're just going to incorporate the chocolate into the cream. Okay, so this is going to go back on the stove just because it's a little bit warm. And while that is melting a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and start on our next truffle and go on to the tangerine. So these beautiful tangerines are they just smell wonderful. And I'm gonna take a vegetable peeler. I love these little flat blade peelers because they make it so easy. And I'm just gonna take a peeled zest, okay, off of the tangerine. That's enough. We don't need much, just a little bit. And again, I'm just gonna go ahead and use my knife. Now I'm just gonna cut a very fine, this is called a chiffonade. It's a little cut that basically you're making little ribbons, okay? And you can do this with herbs, or you can do this with citrus zest, whatever. So now I'm going to turn my zest crosswise, and I'm going to cut through it again and make just a little fine brunoise, which is just a French term for little, very small, beautiful little square. I think our white chocolate, let me check in on this again. You know, when you're putting together the chocolate and the cream, you might be tempted to heat the cream with the chocolate in it. And I'd like to encourage you to avoid that, because you can really burn your chocolate. And it's a little bit nicer to just go ahead, give it the time it takes to actually incorporate it. That's looking pretty good. I want to add my pecans now. So I'm just going to add these, as I mentioned before, to taste. Just going to add a couple little pinches. Ooh, it smells so good. I wish you could smell this. Toasted pecans and white chocolate ganache. There's just something kind of lovely about it. For me, that looks like a pretty nice combination, pretty nice proportion of ganache to pecan, or pecan to ganache. So let me show you how to roll these. I did one a little bit ahead of time so that it would chill and be ready to roll. So once you have the ganache in this consistency, you can see it's pretty liquid, right? When I was actually whisking it, you can see it's really very liquid. And you need to let this firm up so that you can roll the truffles. What I would recommend, if you're doing this the night before, it makes your life so easy. Then the ganache is perfectly firm, and it'll make everything a little bit easier for you to deal with. So now I have some good cocoa powder, and I really like the dark cocoa powder. This is a number 3 on the darkness scale. Cocoa powder can be 1, 2, or 3. What we see in most grocery stores is either a 1 or a 2. So this is like the extra dark, extra beautiful, in my opinion, cocoa powder. And even though these are white truffles, I want some dark chocolate cocoa powder over them. Just use a nice fine sieve. I'm just going to take a little bit of ganache out of my bowl, and I'm just going to drop it in and roll it around. Now, if you can see that, that looks like a real truffle, all right? Real truffles are not perfectly round. I'm just going to leave these nice and natural. This probably shocks you when you have tried to make them perfectly round, and I hope it makes you happy, because you can't go wrong, okay? So that's what our little truffles are going to look like. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you truffle number 2, which is the dark chocolate truffle with tangerine zest that's going to be filled, we're going to fill strawberries with that beautiful ganache. So again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to weigh out our cream. And with dark chocolate, the recipe I gave you actually is the same proportion as the white chocolate, but in reality, that isn't what I do with dark chocolate. But I'm not sure of the kind of dark chocolate you're going to get. I'm using a 70% dark chocolate, and so with 70% dark chocolate, the proportion is actually 1:1 that I use. I like the equal proportion of cream to chocolate. If you have a lower amount of cacao, then you need to double the chocolate to the cream. So I'm going to go with 50 grams of cream. So again, it's not a lot. And I'm going to heat that quickly. And while that is heating, I'm going to go ahead and weigh out my dark chocolate. It's already zeroed out, and I'm going to go with 50 grams of dark chocolate. So as soon as that comes to a boil, we're going to actually pipe our strawberries. So this is going to give me a chance to work on my strawberries, get them ready for us. And I'm just going to take a nice beautiful strawberry, cut off the end. And I'm just gonna cut the white part out of my strawberry. Just like that. All right. Oh, I hear it boiling. Here's the important thing. You see how all of it is bubbling? Now we turn it off. Now we add all of our chocolate at once. Okay? I'm just gonna let that sit. So now back to our strawberries. I'm gonna do a number of different sizes and just take out the centers. So now that my chocolate is melting, I'm gonna add a pinch of my tangerine zest. It's about a teaspoon. And I'm just gonna drop that into my hot cream with the chocolate. And that's important because I want my cream to be infused with the flavor of the zest. And now I'm just going to stir this together. And that's all there is to it. You see how beautiful that's coming together? It's very silky. And you get just a little bit of the look of the little bit of ripple in there, and that's the tangerine zest. Okay? So now what we're gonna do is get a piping bag ready. All we're gonna do is I'm just gonna take a strawberry and fill it, okay? And then once it's filled, I'll show you what it looks like. It's gonna look like this. So I'm gonna have the ganache. The strawberries, once they've been filled, we're gonna go ahead and chill them. All you really need to think about is that it's firm. And then the tops that I've saved, I'm just gonna put right on top and put those back on. And so there you have it. So we have two different types of truffles for Valentine's Day for you and your loved one to enjoy. Thank you so much.